Looks like we're having some connection issues, but we'll give that a minute. I don't think, oh yeah, it looks like we're live. Okay. Go ahead and delete this comment. All right, it looks like we are live. Get that out of there. Come on. There we go. All right. My finger swiping. All right, we got a couple people coming in. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our live Q&A. Hope everybody's having a great week so far and a great Wednesday. All right. Give everybody a minute to file in here, including our expert, Dr. Nick. All right. How are your weeks going?
Good morning. Afternoon for you guys.
Hey, Dr. Nick. Yep.
Thank you.
Hope you're having a great day, Dr. Nick. Welcome. All right, so we'll kick this off. Welcome, everybody, to our weekly live Q&A. My name's Ian. This is Patrick. On the other end, we've got Dr. Nick. So welcome, and thank you both, first of all, for taking time out of your busy schedules to, to go live with us, to answer some questions, and provide your expertise to the broader community here. So if you guys are new, if anybody's new to our live Q&As here, what we're doing is we're taking your questions, not only in the live chat here, but we're taking questions outside the live stream, in the live chat, things we get through the call center, things we get through social media, really all over the place. And we're basically answering them live for you here. Just as a quick call out, we do have a banner on our homepage. If you go to LiveAquaria.com, scroll down a little bit on the page, you'll see a Got an Aquarium Questions banner. And if you click on that, there is a form that will allow you to send us your questions. And if you use that form to submit your question to us, you'll be automatically entered into a giveaway for 4 LiveAquaria gift certificates. So we actually have some of those questions today, which we hope we will get to answering. And we will have 4 winners. And each of those winners will get a $25 gift certificate to LiveAquaria. So really quick, just want to thank everybody who clicked on that link and submitted their questions to us. We always love to see the questions from the community, and we are welcome and open to other questions you have. So definitely, if you want a chance to win one of those 4 $25 gift certificates, head over to liveaquaria.com. Scroll down a little bit on the homepage. You'll see that banner. Click on it. You'll get a form. Fill in the form, and then you're automatically entered. So again, that's 4 $25 gift certificates we're giving away each week. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and start. This is actually one of the questions we have from the submission, and it's from a user named Sammy. Sammy asks, how big can angelfish get? Do they do best with other angelfish? Patrick, I'll let you take that one.
Okay, so I'll cover both, freshwater and saltwater. So freshwater angelfish, most of them have the potential to reach 6 to 8 inches tall. So they get really, really tall. So you need a good size aquarium. You don't want a shallow tank. And about 4 to 5 inches, from nose to the tip of their tail. Generally, angelfish, most people consider them cichlids in the sense that they are kind of nippy. They'll go after smaller fish. They're pretty intelligent fish, and they like to be kept in groups of, like, say, 4 to 6 or so, and they'll establish kind of a pecking order where you have the most dominant fish all the way down to the more passive, timid fish that'll just kind of tool around in the school. How big do they get? Do the best with other? Yeah. So they like to be kept in groups of 4 to 6 inches, 4 to 6 fish. And given their larger size, they should be in an aquarium that's at least 4 feet long. So you're talking, ideally, probably a 75-gallon tank, something that's got a little bit of a depth to it, too, front to back. Some of your more narrow tanks, there might not be enough room for them to really get away from each other. Saltwater angelfish. So there's different groups of angels. So there's dwarfs or pygmies. They reach about 3 inches or so. Pygmies. And then there's dwarfs. Those reach about 6 inches. And then there's all the way up to the holocanthus and pomacanthus angels that can reach upwards of 24 inches in the wild. In the saltwater world, definitely do not keep the same genus of angels together because they will fight. Pairing them is rather difficult, but some people get away with keeping different genuses of angels together, like a Genicanthus angel and a Pomacanthus. Sometimes they'll, if the tank is big enough, they'll kind of ignore each other. You know, the Pomacanthus angels have a presence, and the other fish just kind of know to get out of their way, and that's it. So,
no, that's great.
Awesome. Dr. Nick, anything from your end you'd like to add? All right. Well, thank you, Sammy, for the question. If you're in the chat, thank you so much for submitting to us. So just a reminder, Sammy is one of the $25 gift certificates. We got 3 more to get through today. So, of course, we're taking live questions in the chat also. So feel free to pass those along to us, and we'll do our best to get to those. Next question was also a submission from the website and a recipient of the $25 gift certificate from a Kyle. He says, recently, I heard that carbon is not recommended as a long-term component of filtration and should only be used for emergencies and or short-term water polishing. The recommendations were for polyfilter or Purigen as alternatives. What are your thoughts, and what type of chemical media, if any, is
All right,
used
well,
at
I'll
LiveAquaria?
start with the first
Thanks.
part, and then we'll
Dr. Nick, I'll let you
talk
take this
about
one.
what you do actually at LiveAquaria. But this is an interesting question. We've actually talked about it on previous LiveAquaria Q&A sessions about using carbon. Carbon has been used forever in little cartridges that you put into your undergravel filter and box filters and in the back of hang-on filters and canister filters. When I was working in the pet industry, in the retail pet stores for over 20 years, we originally were using little carbon canisters in the recirculating water in the filtration. And we did see some evidence of carbon dust being released from the carbon and getting into the fish. The fish would breathe through it, get attached to their gills, cause gill problems. There's been a number of reports linking carbon to head and lateral line erosion or hole in the head disease. And I had mentioned previously, Jack Watley had suggested not using carbon with discus because of that reason. And I asked him, you know, what he thought the problem it caused was, and he wasn't sure, but he just found that they did better without using carbon. So in the pet industry, what we ended up doing is we used a carbon canister on the incoming water, where the water would go through the carbon one time to remove chlorine, going into a constant water flow system where the tap water had chlorine coming in. So the water would go through the carbon one time, which would remove the chlorine, but it would not recirculate through the chlorine. It was the carbon. It was only on the incoming tap. And that seemed to work fine. So we took all carbon out of all the filter systems except for a canister that the incoming tap water flowed through. And then that again has to be changed monthly or every so often, because carbon has a limited capacity for absorbing things, adsorbing. And once it's full, some of the chemicals can actually be re-released. And that's one of the other thoughts besides carbon dust, is eventually as the carbon gets full of whatever it's absorbing, some of that is released again back into the water, which could cause a health problem. So if you're not changing the carbon on a frequent basis, that may result in some of these problems as well. So the use of carbon as just an intermittent treatment, especially it's useful if you've used medication in your water, or there's some waste accumulation in the water where you hook up carbon, run it through the carbon will remove those compounds, throw that carbon away, disconnect the carbon filter, and then if you need to use it again after medication, just use a fresh batch of carbon. So that would be the used in emergencies or short-term water polishing, and I think you're certainly fine with that. Other than that, carbon is sometimes used, again, to remove chlorine. It's used to remove some forms of copper, and it's used to remove chemicals like medications from the water. It doesn't remove ammonia, nitrite, or nitrate, so there's really no value of using it for, just ongoing purposes. Patrick, you can talk about what you're doing at LiveAquaria and some of the other media you use instead of carbon.
Yeah, so Kyle was also asking about polyfilter and Purigen. So those are two other forms of, you call them chemical filtration. So a polyfilter is actually, it reminds me of like a scrub pad. So you buy it and it comes in a large, like 12 by 12 inch pad, and then you trim it to whatever size you would need. So a lot of people would stick that in their filter because ideally you want to have water flow through it. It works best that way. Ideally, no, all the water should flow through it, no bypass. The problem with polyfilter is it is a pretty fine pad, so it will clog up quickly. So that's a problem that a lot of people have with that. So that can limit its lifespan. So you'd have to almost rinse it, to get the debris out of it, because if the water's not passing through it, then the actual point of it is to remove any impurities from the water. It also changes color based on what elements are found in the water. If you're trying to remove copper from the water, it'll actually turn blue. If you're removing iron from the water, it'll actually turn orange. So polyfilter is good for removal of medications and any impurities that shouldn't be in the water. Purigen is a pretty cool product. It's actually a synthetic absorbent, so it's a resin. So what it does is it actually works really well for organic stuff that's in the tank. So it works good for ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, and you can actually recharge it, which is good. You put in a bleach solution, you can recharge it and can continue to use it time and time again. So that's a pretty cool component that you can add to your filter for chemical filtration. So it's probably the best, to be honest with you, because of the lifespan on its. You can monitor it because it'll get darker as it gets full. So as it gets really dark, then you take it out and you can recharge it and put it back in your tank too. So here at the Coral Farm, we don't use any type of chemical filtration. We rely heavily on our biological filtration, our protein skimmer. Our protein skimmer will take out, will take out the good and the bad. So we use a lot of skimming here, just water changes. That's about it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you both. And thank you, Kyle, for the question. On to the next question. This is also submitted to the website from an Allie. What types of supplements, diet, or water treatments are recommended as a preventative measures to ensure optimal fish
I've
health?
actually
Dr. Nick, I'll let you start this one.
Pulled up a link to Tetra Easy Balance, and that's just the first thing that came to mind when I read that question. So taking this, what type of supplements for diet or water treatment? So going first to the water treatment. So obviously over time, we've talked about before, the nitrate and phosphate accumulate in the water. So using supplements to reduce the nitrate and phosphate will help, or doing water changes. So my first thought when I was reading this was Easy Balance, which is made by Tetra, which is a product that claims to reduce nitrate with a product that's in it called Nitroban. And so I don't know exactly how it works, but my guess it's a chemical compound that binds with nitrate and helps to break it down over time. But that is something that Tetra claims, if you're adding their Easy Balance on, let me see if it says monthly, that you add it to the aquarium monthly, you don't need to do a water change. I personally like doing water changes. I think it's really helpful, but if you're in a circumstance where you couldn't do a water change or you couldn't do a large water change, then using a product like this might be a help. On our last question, we talked about some of the other filter pads and Purigen and things that can be added to the water to maintain water quality, to remove phosphate, chlorine, carbon, or copper, things like that. So there are those supplements. Now, do you need to use it all the time? Depends on your local tap water. The best thing to do is have your tap water tested. If you have high copper in your tap water, if you have high phosphate in the tap water, then water changes may not help you. And there are parts in the country here in Arizona, which is where I am, we're the copper state. And there are parts of Arizona where copper mines are prevalent and your local tap water has chunks of copper coming out. Not that bad, but it's very high copper. And we've had situations, I've had clients where their local tap water is so high in copper that they're having trouble keeping the fish alive. And so the only solution to that is, again, as we've talked about, using RO water blended, using EDTA, calcium EDTA, which binds with copper to remove it from the water. So if you do have copper or phosphate in your tap, you may need to use regular chemicals or filter media to take those out. Those are probably the two biggest things: nitrate, phosphate, copper, and chlorine. So you want to make sure you're taking chlorine out. Then as far as feed supplements, most food is balanced if it's a pellet or a flake food. However, we've talked about previously, it cannot be old, it cannot be exposed to air, it cannot be exposed to heat. Those will cause the nutrients to diminish more rapidly. But if it's fairly fresh, within like 6 months, you should be safe using it. And then if you use a variety of different foods, so I use a combination of pelleted food and flake food. If you have picky eaters, you might use some frozen food or freeze-dried food in there as well. And then that will ensure you get a balanced nutrition. I'll have one more thing to add, but I'll let Patrick go in here, and then bring it back.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I like to just stick with the basics. You know, like Dr. Nick talked about, water quality is key, and also just offering the good variety of nutritious food. If you're on top of your water parameters, just making sure everything's in check. You know, I often take for granted, you know, water. I like to think that, you know, if it comes out of the tap, it's going to be safe for fish, but that's not always the case, as Dr. Nick would say. So I'm hoping if you have an aquarium, you found a reliable water source that you can stay on top of your water changes with, because I think water changes and nutrition, you know, from the staple foods that you're going to feed, is key to a healthy environment. You know, I feel like a lot of the extra additives out there may not be, you know, essential. I mean, a lot of them advertise a miracle product, but sometimes it's too much. You know, I like to say, not broke, don't fix it. You know, if your aquarium's thriving, then just stick with, you know, the basics, the water changes and nutritious food, and always quarantine your new arrivals for sure, because things can get ugly real fast if you just throw new fish in your tank, for sure.
Yeah, definitely a big bullet point from other live Q&As.
Yeah, so the last thing I wanted to bring up is,
go ahead, Dr. Nick, you had the last point.
Keep an eye out for the LiveAquaria fish food, which is coming out this summer, which will be a nutritionally balanced food that is using predominantly ingredients that are that are natural to fish. So it'll be insects, fish meal, algae, and vitamins and minerals without all the additives. And it's interesting, if you look at most fish food labels, you'll see everything from potatoes and peas and green beans and soy and wheat and corn and broccoli or whatever they're putting in. And not that those are not nutritious, because they can be put into a form that is nutritious, and you'll see lots of fish food have those ingredients in them. But fish are not really good at digesting carbohydrates. They're primarily eating proteins in the wild, and a little bit of carbohydrate and a little bit of fat. And so the LiveAquaria fish food is going to be not necessarily a high protein diet, because high protein is actually not healthy for older fish. It's okay for I would say puppies, for babies, for fish fry. You can use high protein for fish fry. It helps them grow. They use protein for growth. Once they're full grown, they don't need a lot of protein. And what happens is most of the fish foods are made for young fish that are growing, and then as they get older, the protein level is too high, and it actually can make them fat. It can cause metabolic problems, and it's better to feed older fish a lower protein diet. So the LiveAquaria range is going to have food for young fish, food for old fish, food for all different species of fish based on their needs and sizes of the food. And it will be predominantly insects, fish, algae, and vitamins and minerals.
Yeah, that's a really good call out. I'm glad you mentioned the upcoming foods we're working on, because that's been a big initiative, a big priority for us here. Is, you know, obviously putting our heads together, putting all of our years of experience, including, you know, yours, Dr. Nick, and bringing it to the table to develop formulas and develop product lines that are, you know, not only something we're proud of and we use here, but something that you as a hobbyist can be proud of and can feel comfortable and safe using in your own aquarium. So similar to our approach with our salt and our supplements and some of the foods we already have in play, like our frozen food and our dry food, our flake pellet blends. We got more coming up, including live food. So definitely stay tuned for upcoming product launches from us there. So thank you. I'm going to take a question from chat here from Art. Welcome back, Art. So he's working on stocking list for his 310 saltwater fowler tank. Tank is ordered. Is going off the internet that says no multiple tanks of the same type. Many fish. The internet says you don't have more than. Then I see all the beautiful tank videos and like online 5 purple tangs swim by or 10 clownfish swim by. Can I do multiple fish of the same kind? For example, purple tangs. Patrick, I'll let you take that one.
Purple tangs. Those are probably the Zebrasoma genus is so aggressive, extremely territorial. I mean, we've even tried to raise, groups of 25 purple tangs in a coral vat, which is, I mean, it's not 310 gallons, but it's pretty spacious. I mean, you're talking 6 feet long by 3 feet wide, 18 inches deep or so, with numerous places to hide. And these guys will only be about half dollar size, and they'll just go out of their way to just beat the snot out of each other. So I would not recommend doing that. Whatever video you probably saw, it might have been like a very large display tank or a public display tank, multiple thousand gallons or something like that. But that genus is just notoriously aggressive towards members of its own kind, its own family. Clownfish, on the other hand, I mean, if you raise them all from a very young age together, something like that is doable for sure. I mean, we have a Red Sea reefer that's about 100 gallons or so that has about 25 clownfish that were raised from about a half an inch up. And it's been a few years now, and they're all just living in harmony together. So, I mean, there definitely is some fish that you could keep in groups in that size tank, but tangs, if you're going to do multiple tangs, they definitely need to be multiple genuses and make sure that they're different sizes, different colors, and you stock the most aggressive one last. So that being probably the Zebrasoma or a Cantharus tang or something like that. So, and then you got to run the risk too of if you stress those guys out, they're going to be very prone to getting ick because of how susceptible they are to that ailment. So, a parasite for sure. So that's a tricky one. Yeah. There's a lot of those. I call them fairy tank tails. Fairy tale tanks. Yeah. You look at them, it's just like, oh man. Yeah. That no one's going to be able to do that.
In a perfect world, yeah. I know. I was going to add on to that. I see a lot of tanks, and either through social posts or groups, what have you, on Reef to Reef. There's a lot of great tanks out there to use as inspiration. But yeah, that's the reality we got to live with. And it's like
when we go to shows, we go to shows and they'll set up a beautiful display tank, and at the beginning of the show, the fish are all getting along in harmony. By day 3, half of them are hiding with split fins. Because once they snap out of it.
Yeah. So I mean, just speaking to that too, when we go to trade shows, that's something we're always taking into account. Something we, like we're doing here, we're trying to advocate and inform and educate everybody from our experience. Sort of what is the best approach to take for keeping tangs, for example, or keeping multiple fish together, and how to do that best if you're building a stock list for your 310 or whatever size. I think, Patrick, you probably back me up here too. It's like, you may go in with a stock list that looks good on paper, but in the end, when you implement it, it just does not work.
Yeah.
And I think that just kind of gets back to the reality that, every fish is different, just like a person. So you may think it's going to gel and you may think it's going to work, but, sometimes.
Yeah, it may have worked for one person, but it's not going to work for everyone.
Right. So, good luck, Art. Happy to help, of course. Check out our website too. In case you got any questions, feel free to reach out. We're always happy to help. Alex asks, what's the best size to get them? I'm assuming you're referring to tangs.
Yeah, I would think right around the 1.5 to 2 inches is a pretty sturdy size. At that point, the metabolism isn't super high, because when you get the really young ones, I feel like just, a day of transit really, really upsets them, from a metabolism point of view. You may get them and they may be really, really thin. Some of them don't bounce back from that. but right around 1.5 to 2 inches, it's a pretty sturdy size. You get them into the tank, they usually start eating right away. The really big ones, they're pretty nasty, you know. So I would grow them up, you know, from a size, you know, 1.5 to 2 inches, maybe 3 inches. That's okay too.
Okay. All right. Hopefully that helps, Alex. Thank you for the question. Thank you, Art, again. Real quick, I just want to give a quick shout out because we put a lot of work into this over the last few weeks. We recently launched a new section on our LiveAquaria.com website for captive-bred freshwater fish. So we're really proud of this because really, I mean, it's something we noticed that not a lot of online retailers like ourselves have. And, you know, kind of always being that, you know, industry first mindset we have had over the last 20 years. You know, we wanted to build a special section of our website to highlight the availability of these new captive-bred freshwater fish. So actually, I mean, we've actually had them for some time. We've just been working with suppliers. We've been working with different sources to I think, really just kind of make this rock solid. So if you haven't already, this is something we recently launched just last Sunday. We sent out an email about it, but definitely go check out if you're interested in some captive-bred freshwater fish. Check out the LiveAquaria.com website. There's a big hero image on the homepage. You can click on that. It'll take you straight to the category, and yeah, happy shopping. A lot of great stuff in there. So I think we'll take one more question, and this will be the last question that we picked for the $25 gift certificate. So let me see here. I'll take this one. This one's from David. He has a discus doing well in a low pH tank at about 83 degrees. By low pH, he means no more than 6 to 6.5. I wonder if any breed of angelfish can do well with discus with these water parameters.
Okay, so
and
I
Dr. Nick,
have
I'll let you
seen
start this one off.
angelfish and discus kept together, but I've also seen problems associated with that. Angelfish can be very big and very aggressive. They're both South American cichlids, so you think, you know, they're kind of aggressive, but angelfish are sort of moderately aggressive compared to many other South American cichlids. However, discus are very docile and timid, so they're typically not aggressive at all, and so they can still be bullied by angelfish. So you'd have to be very careful. Make sure you have a lot of plants, especially, you know, different Vallisneria or types of tall plants that both the angelfish and the discus like to swim among and hide, so that they have a chance to hide and keep separated. But maybe some smaller fish would be better. Some South American fish like cardinal tetras, a little school of cardinal tetras is also frequently kept with discus. Just add a little bit of a coloring movement, smaller fish swimming around, and they tend not to bother them. Of course, if you're planning on breeding the discus, your best bet is to keep them just by themselves. But if you're just having a display aquarium, then probably, you know, some South American catfish and then some cardinals might do better than angelfish in with the discus. And also remember, the discus do like to live in groups, so probably 5 or 6 at a time. And the water parameters you mentioned, 6 to 6.5 pH is fine. They also like softer water, so depending on your softness scale, but usually around 50 milligrams per liter of alkalinity of calcium carbonate, which would be about 17 DKH. No, it'd be 3 DKH. 3 DKH would be about 51. So 50 to 70 soft water. So you sometimes go as low as like, you know, 30 or 40, but usually 50 is okay. And then the pH at 6.2, 6.4 up to probably 7. They can go a little bit higher than that. In the wild, the pH of the water they're found in can be as low as 5 to 6, but in captivity, usually 6 to 7 is fine. And let's see, what else? Patrick, you got some ideas?
Yeah, like Dr. Nick mentioned, I mean, angelfish can be kind of bossy, for sure. And the last thing you want to do, especially if your discus are thriving, is put a more aggressive fish in there, because that'll cause the discus to be really timid and lay low. They'll be in the back of the tank. They'll be stressed. Their color will be awful. And at that point, once they become stressed, they'll be more susceptible to some of the ailments that are common to discus, you know. wasting diseases and stuff like that. So I definitely would not recommend putting, angelfish in that tank. You want the discus to feel like they're the most dominant fish in the tank. That way they'll be up front. Their color will be best. I mean, you could put some smaller dither fish in there, like Dr. Nick said, cardinal tetras, rummy nose tetras, cories to help scavenge on the bottom. You could even try some New World cichlids like epistogrammas would be okay, cool, hanging out towards the bottom. I wouldn't go much higher than 83 degrees, but they still should be okay. They'll be okay with that water, that pH and everything like that. But yeah, if your discus are fine, don't put anything that's going to stress them out for sure. You'll regret it.
All right. Well, I think that's the final question for today. Real quick before we wrap this up, I just thought I'd mention there was a comment right away, Dr. Nick. There was a shout out for the Beatles poster. So I think we got some fellow Beatles fans in the chat.
Can't go wrong. Beatles and
oh, very nice. Very nice. We're going to have to step up our wardrobe. We're usually black or blue here. So.
Got the whole
very
genre
nice.
From Sergeant Pepper to the early days.
The whole shebang. Awesome. Well, thank you again. And first of all, thank you to everybody who joined in on our live Q&A today. Always a lot of fun to interact with you guys, answer your questions live, as well as questions that were submitted. Just a reminder, and I'll put it into the chat here after the stream's end, just as a reminder, but we do have that link on our homepage brings you to a form to submit questions to us. We have 4 winners today that will receive $25 gift certificates because we answered their questions live here. So the only way to do that, though, is to submit them via that form. So head over to liveaquaria.com, click on the banner a little bit further down on the homepage. It says got a question, and fill in that form. It takes like 2 seconds, and then you're automatically in. We'll be doing this every week, Wednesday, 1 p.m. CST. And so, yeah, real quick, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Dr. Nick. Thank you, Patrick, for taking time out of your schedule. Until next time, you guys have a great rest of your week. Oh, don't forget, 7:30 p.m. CST on Monday, we're doing a live dive sale. So go check out our Facebook events page and RSVP to that, so you don't want to miss that. We got some exclusive deals on Wizard Aquatic Life. We got freebies, we got giveaways. We had exclusive promo codes in the last one where you could save 50% off. So definitely go check that out. We always have a lot of fun, and it's always great to have a great deal. So until next time, have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you guys later.
See ya.